I'm Dave Briskie. I'd like to welcome you to the 4th episode of Briskie Business. Thanks again for making me a part of your day. The goal of the platform is to offer you strategies to help accelerate your business, and it's a forum where we offer tips and tidbits that are shared to help you demystify the business process and the business process as well as the stock market, which is confusing for many. It's a place where mentorship is not only discussed, it's encouraged. And we invite questions. At the end of the day, this is your program, and we want to discuss what you're interested in having conversation about. So always write me if you have any topics you'd like to discuss or any clarifying points at briskiebusiness@ntvUSA.com. During the last broadcast, we took a deep dive into the selling process. We took nuggets out of the balance sheet and helped explain how the balance sheet could help you evaluate different business opportunities and the strength of different companies. And we also spent some time on gap moments. And frankly, I got a ton of feedback from all of you about gap moments, so I'm glad you enjoyed that part of the program. Go back to episode 3 on the NTV USA app and take a look or take a listen. All the episodes of Briskie Business live there. Briskie Business is broken down into 4 different segments. It's Brisk Business Basics, Brisk's Buy or Bail, Brisk's Bulls and Bears, and Brisk's Best and Brightest, which is all about mentorship. I'm really excited about today's program. The reason why I'm excited is it's the first program that I'm going to bring a guest on, and that's going to be a regular part of Briskie Business. And this guest, he's a man that'll probably be no stranger to many of you watching. He's very, very successful in a 23-year career and the founder of Longevity International. He is the CEO and chairman of the board there. And the cool thing about Mr. Steve Wallach's experience is that Steve Wallach founded the company some 23 years ago. And I think having a guest like that is going to be helpful for all of you as you start different business ventures. And we can learn a lot from Steve's experience during that 23 years. So let's bring Steve Wallach on to Briskie Business. Hey, Steve, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me on. Congratulations on the show. I've told you before, but I'll say it publicly. I love the name, and I love all your experience, and I love your heart for sharing. So thank you for allowing me to be part of it.
Well, I was saying to the listening audience, it's the first guest I've ever had. So you're in an esteemed position. You're our first guest, and I can't think of a better first guest to have. So Steve, take a big, deep breath, grab a cup of your favorite coffee, and let's get started.
Absolutely. I've got my favorite coffee with me, and you know what that is.
I'm going to guess that's
Be the Change coffee is dear to my heart.
I understand. Longevity be the change coffee. So listen, the first segment, Steve, is Brisk's Business Basics. Last segment, we spent a fair amount of time in the earlier segment on the business plan. And then we dove deep into the sales process. Our listenership had a keen interest in that. I thought, what a perfect time to bring you onto the program to talk about your early career. So forget about your 23 years of experience. I want you to go back in time with me, back 23 years ago, before you had all this incredible experience of 23 years. And then I'm going to ask you some questions about how you jumped into that in that mindset, okay? Remember, 50% of startup businesses fail within 4 years, and 95% fail in 10 years. And here's Longevity International, 23 years and the running. So let's talk about that. You're all excited. Walk me through the process on how you got started in your first business venture.
Sure. Gosh, that goes back longer than 23 or 24 years. You know, growing up around my father in particular and my grandparents and then other mentors along the way, I knew for sure that I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to be self-employed. I wanted to be a business owner. It was just natural to me in the people around me. And so I started writing my first business plans really on a piece of paper, yellow pad of paper or notebook paper, you know, in my teens.
Wow, that's amazing. Not a lot of people actually start writing it down. It was a tip I kind of gave in the first one. If you can't write it down, it can't be done. So you're pretty fortunate that you started off with that. Tell me, let's go off before we get into the biggest rewards. What were some of those maybe misconceptions you had going in, or some of those early big mistakes you might have made as a new entrepreneur?
I think one of the things that I've heard you tell others as well, but I think one of the common misconceptions, and mine probably as well, is that being an entrepreneur and working for yourself or working for a business you've started, is that it is 24/7. It is not a job in that it's 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or whatever. It is 24/7. There are things happening around the clock, especially in today's world. So I think that's a very common misconception.
Yeah, I think you're right. I hear people all the time say they want to get into their own business because they want to work for themselves and make their own hours. And for me, that means, well, that's simple. That's going to be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. How did you incorporate some of those misconceptions or maybe early mistakes into your early business career?
Well, I think that, and you know this well, Dave, when you start a business, especially in the very, very beginning, it's very common to start with your family and friends. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's how you incorporate your life and your lifestyle and your family and friends into your business. So it definitely allows you and a person to work around the clock more easily. I don't remember who the quote is from, but if you find something you love, you won't work a day in your life. And I've grown to really believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a quote that I say often, and it was one that I said to my children: find something you love to do and figure out how to make money doing it, and you won't work a day in your life. And it is an absolute fact. Incorporating the evolution of a business, tell me about that. I've seen business plans that are super rigid. How important do you think it is to have flexibility baked into your business plan? And did you have it in yours?
In my early business plans, especially, I had a lot of flexibility baked into them because I didn't formally know how to create a business plan. I just kind of knew what I knew through experience. But any battle plan, and Muhammad Ali, I think, is famous for saying that his plan going into a fight goes out the door or out the window at the first punch. And I think a business plan kind of has to be like that also. It's great to have it mapped out, and I've heard you say it a million times: if you can't write it down, you can't do it. But you have to have the flexibility. I also heard you talk about, I think in your inaugural show, that you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to be fast on your feet. And somebody that I've grown up kind of studying is Richard Branson of Virgin Enterprises. And one of his philosophies is no matter how big you get, be able to remain small and be able to pivot quickly.
Wow, that's a really. I'm going to steal that as a bite, actually, when we do Brisk's bit. I actually have a Brisk's bit right now, Steve. It's this: if your business plan is set in concrete, you will sink. It must be flexible to allow for pivots, and you brought up pivots just now. Being able to pivot is essential. We talk a lot of folks that enter into the direct selling business, and obviously you know a fair about direct selling and the direct selling channel, and they don't experience success early. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think why people don't experience success early in any business, whether it's direct selling or a traditional brick and mortar retail business or a new online business, is one, they're learning. Two, they're getting their name and their product and their service out there, and it takes time. And it takes time to learn how to get it out far and wide and reach a wider audience, and for people to also learn to value your product and service and you as an individual. So all that takes time. And so when you're starting out, oftentimes new entrepreneurs don't have that base of contacts and awareness to leverage. So it's natural that things aren't overnight successes. We hear about overnight successes that are 10 and 20 years old all the time.
That's true. I've heard you say before, one of the reasons you felt there was some challenges in terms of the success ratio is When you got into business, I'm sure you put everything you had into it. We talk about people mortgaging their homes. They take every one of their last dollars. And there's an ease of entry into the direct selling channel. And you talked about commitment on another program I saw you talk about. So do you think that level of commitment may be the reason why we don't see that not everyone's succeeding at it?
Definitely, that's a factor in network marketing, direct sales, and the direct sales profession. Is people aren't sure what they're getting into sometimes, and their level of commitment isn't going to be the same as somebody that is spending or investing hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to start a business. Direct selling, that's one of the things I love about it, is that you don't have to go rent a traditional space. You don't need a phone book ad or an online ad or online advertising to be successful in direct sales these days. And, so you can start for very, very little in terms of an investment. In fact, the biggest investment for most people in direct sales is their time and their reputation. But when it comes to a traditional business, it's a much larger investment, which also leads to a much larger commitment for most people.
Yeah, so you don't have maybe as much to lose. But I always look at time value as so critical, right, at the end of the day. So those that get in, I've got another couple of questions, and we've got only another minute. So in 1 minute, let's talk about, you've got direct selling, Steve, 23 years. What nugget can you offer to a new distributor considering a side hustle or 100% career pivot to direct selling?
Be passionate about what you're involved in. Be passionate about what the product or service is, or the business opportunity. Be passionate about something. Passion is the ingredient, the secret ingredient.
I totally agree with you. Steve, can you come back for the other segments? I think we're just kind of getting into it. Can you join me for the rest of the hour? Great.
I'd be happy to. Thank you.
All right, this concludes the segment of Brisk Business Basics, and we're going to be right back after a few words from our sponsors with Brisk Buy or Bail.
A strong heart is a happy heart. Your body's systems depend on a healthy cardiovascular system to thrive. Without a healthy heart, you could experience symptoms like fatigue, aches and pains, dizziness, or shortness of breath. Longevity developed Ultimate EFA Plus with a proprietary balanced blend of essential fatty acids. We started with flaxseed oil. It's been shown to improve the elasticity of arteries and support healthy blood pressure. Next, we included cold water fish oils, rich in omega-3s that can promote a healthy cardiovascular system and even increase levels of good HDL cholesterol. Then we added borage oil, known for its powerful anti-inflammatory properties. Blended together, these essential fatty acids provide you with the optimal blend of nutrients to help maintain normal cardiovascular health. Ultimate EFA Plus, the right nutrients to improve your heart health naturally. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Understanding your microbiome can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Super Greens is a one-of-a-kind blend that's loaded with hard-to-find nutrient-dense superfoods. We've used what we've learned from our more than 20 years working with mineral-based nutrition to create one of the healthiest, plant-based nutritional products available. Each superfood was carefully selected so that it complements and enhances the others, helping to maximize Super Green's nutritional power. Next, we added a specialized fermentation technique to increase the bioavailability of each superfood. Finally, we put in powerful probiotics and enzymes for added digestive support to give you jam-packed nutritional support. Youngevity Super Greens, the highly alkalinizing super supplement that helps balance your body. It's the superfood-powered way to get more organic fruits and veggies in your day, all in just one scoop. Check with your Youngevity distributor to learn more.
Welcome back to Briskie Business. In this segment of the program, we talk about Brisk's buy or bail. And in this segment, we talk about the process of making decisions in business, which frankly is an everyday process. I'm fortunate on the program today, and we're going to have him here through the entire hour, Steve Wallach, CEO, Chairman of Youngevity International, traded on the NASDAQ, YGYI. And we're going to bring Steve back on to talk about some of his experiences in business decisions, which are done every single day. Steve and I have a really nice history together. We merged together our businesses back in 2011, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in the public company section. And from there, we were about a $20 million enterprise, and we're proud to say we're north of $160 million just, I guess, 8 years later, so 7 years later, actually, when we eclipsed that mark. So we're pretty proud of that. Steve, every single day, rapid decisions are made, all types of ways we have to make decisions, and I call it buy or bail, and you know what I'm talking about. We assess all this information, and are we going to go with our decision, or are we going to maybe not go with it? And there's many areas that this process comes in, and one I really want to start with, because I know it's one of your passions, and Youngevity has such an incredible array of products, is tell the listeners how you go about making a decision on a new product. What goes into that decision, and then when do you make the decision to go buy, continue, or bail on it?
You know, there's a lot that goes into creating products and deciding whether you're going to introduce them into the market. Sometimes we create products and we don't introduce them to the market. Sometimes we create products and we introduce them to the market on a timeline that follows through everything that we had planned. And other times it's at a different time. So it just really depends. But the decision-making process goes into evaluating and reevaluating all the time. And so it's based on market, it's based on market influence and what's going on in the marketplace. It's based on our consumer base, our distributor base, our competition. All of those things go into the final decision whether to actually introduce a product. And then it also goes into, can you produce the product? Can your manufacturers get it done to your satisfaction, to your original goals and plans? And then cost is an evaluation once it's done in terms of planning and development.
Tell me about the economics of it. Have you ever fallen in love with a product, but just the economics wouldn't allow you to introduce it?
Often. That happens often. Sure, absolutely. And usually those products or projects are things that I revisit and revisit and revisit and look for another way to get it done. If I'm passionate about something and the market place continues to have a need or an interest in it, then I'll continue to work on it.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we didn't have to worry about price and margins, wouldn't it?
It's a big part of it, absolutely.
Yeah, you have to. If you're a for-profit company, even though you may fall in love with the product and what it can do, if you can't get the consumer to pay or realize the value, it kind of flops, and that can be really, really difficult. I know, and I've seen you struggle through some decisions in our business on products you really wanted to bring to market, but it just wasn't going to work for the model. Acquisitions is another thing. I mean, the Longevity deploys a pretty significant acquisition model, I know, and I know it's over 30 different businesses, even since I've been involved in the company. I imagine that this kind of buy or bail process is a pretty big factor in acquisitions. Talk about that a little bit and what goes into it in your mind.
Sure. Acquisitions are like buying a business. They're like evaluating any other business and making those decisions. I know that you and I together have evaluated probably 75, 100, maybe even more businesses in that process of deciding whether or not to continue going down the road towards an acquisition or a joint venture or whatever the decision and whatever the thought process is. And so we evaluate all of those, and many we probably turn away more and turn down more than we complete.
Yeah, obviously. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, who knows? It could be 1 in 10 work out, right? So it's, I guess, when you're being evaluated at how you're doing in a business, it's what's happening that people can't see. I think that is maybe most surprising.
Absolutely. It's culture, it's products, it's people, it's terms of the deal, it's all of those things, and just because you decide, or just because the decision is jointly made not to move forward on a decision, whether it's a product, whether it's a joint venture, whether it's an investment, whether it's an acquisition, it doesn't mean that it won't happen down the road. It's one thing that one of my mentors taught me a long time ago. Don't always be in such a hurry to get something done. Take your time. There'll be other opportunities, and oftentimes there are. So if it makes sense, you move forward. But if it doesn't make sense, it just means it doesn't make sense now.
Yeah, that's a good point. So let's talk about, I'm going to shift a little bit into another process, staying with brisk buy or bail. And I built a pretty big international business prior to our involvement together. And Longevity has expanded internationally. And that's a whole different mindset. So give me an idea about the process you might use when you open an international market, which may be a little bit different than a domestic market.
A lot more goes into opening a market than a single product evaluation or even an acquisition type evaluation, because there's so much more in terms of considerations. It's a much larger investment, and the timeline is much longer to have things get done. There are a lot of things out of any one person's control. And so international, definitely there's a lot more that goes into opening an international market for sure.
How important do you think it is to find nationals or local people when you're talking about expanding internationally?
I think it's critical to have people that are in alignment with your goals and vision locally, because as we talked about earlier in this program, in your show, to be in business, you have to be able to and be willing to work 24/7. And when it comes to international markets, you need some people on the ground in that market to make decisions that are in alignment with your goals and visions as a business much faster than maybe you're able to from around the world.
In my early career, I talk about it often, right? Where do you get this business wisdom from? And I say, I fail a lot, so, when you fail, you learn, and, or at least if you're going to be around, you're going to learn from those failures. And in my early career, I entered international markets, and boy, I was going to do it the American way. And we entered Europe. This was back with Drew Pearson Marketing, and we were all excited to bring the American know-how into markets like Europe. And boy, every time we brought over our own people into those markets, we just couldn't get any traction. And what it really came down to is you had to understand the culture of that particular market to have the success. And you can't read about culture in a book. You have to kind of live it, right? You have to grow up in it. Did you have any experiences like that in growing up in opening up international markets?
Absolutely, and I've come to that same conclusion that you have to have that local cultural intelligence, and you don't read it in a book and you don't learn it secondhand unless you've lived it. And so having somebody local in the market that is very, very familiar, has lived it, is a huge advantage for sure.
You know, I do brisk bits, and this is a brisk bit. If you enter an international market without a full understanding of its culture and without establishing a team who lives that culture, you will fail. Take that brisk bit to the bank. And I think we see that for sure, Steve. So staying with the same ideas, I mean, here you are, you know, we're sitting in this situation. You're now in 3 business segments. I mean, my goodness, you went direct selling. You've got a coffee business. Longevity also has now a hemp enterprises. You know, those are different businesses. How did one lead to the other?
Well, ultimately, it all came down to all have connectivity around the consumer. They're all 3 consumer-based businesses with consumer products that the consumer has an interest in. So it's not B2B, so to speak. It's really consumer-based in terms of the products that are created. And there's a lot of crossover with agriculture and production, and each business segment either designs and produces products. And so with the hemp enterprise, with Chrysos and CLR, both have field to finish technologies and capabilities to produce a consumer-facing product line, really a product good. And so when it comes to longevity on the direct selling side, we develop products, and while we're not field to finish except through Chrysos and CLR, it definitely is an understood technology. And my father has a background in agriculture. I've grown up around all of that sort of stuff. And so our products are very consumer focused and consumer facing, but they start with an agricultural base. We have natural products, we have certified organic products and things like that. And so it all ties in from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, leveraging core competencies comes to mind, right? I mean, you're not coming out of left field with it. I know we've ventured into a few businesses through acquisitions where they got a little bit outside of our core competency. And when that happens, you know, maybe it's a little bit easier, instead of falling in love with the deal, bail, right? That one, rather than buy. So, Steve, can you hang with me for another segment?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up here on this segment, brisk buy or bail. You know, I think we offered some great insights. I certainly appreciate what Steve brought to the table. A lot that we can all learn from. And we're going to be back after a word from our sponsors that are helping provide this great content to all of you. The next segment we'll be back with is Brisks, Bulls, and Bears. And we're going to dig into the public markets, and this is going to be interesting. Be back in a moment.
Our NTV USA platform has its own smartphone applications. If you're operating on Android, please make sure to go to the Play Store, search up NTV USA, hit download and install. If you're operating on iPhone or any other kind of iOS operating system, please go to the App Store, search up NTV USA, hit download and install. It's simple, it's easy, but most of all, it's comfortable. There, you'll find notifications to all of our programming so that you can follow us and keep up with all of our shows. And every single announcement that we make here at NTV USA, under every single program, you'll find a link that with a single click will take you directly to the smartphone applications. So what are you waiting for? Enjoy our programming. Stay tuned, stay connected, enjoy a nice cup of coffee, And remember, con una vista, basta.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Youngevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
As you age, factors like health, weight, diet, and lifestyle can all impact your bones, joints, and general mobility. Over time, you might start to experience stiffness or pain due to damaged joints or connective tissue. Ultimate Glucogel by Youngevity was created to help you limit the effects of wear on your joints. It delivers a daily dose of collagen-rich gelatin your body needs for joint elasticity and maintenance. Ultimate Glucogel contains a 1-to-1 ratio of gelatin and glucosamine sulfate, which is a key building block of your bone matrix, cartilage, ligaments, tendons, and connective tissue. Gelatin's unique blend of amino acids not only help with muscle and joint health, but also has been shown to provide additional benefits for the brain, skin, and hair. Ultimate Glucogel. Natural, optimal daily support for joint health. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate. A strong heart is a happy heart. Your body's systems depend on a healthy cardiovascular system to thrive. Without a healthy heart, you could experience symptoms like fatigue, aches and pains, dizziness, or shortness of breath. Youngevity developed Ultimate EFA Plus with a proprietary balanced blend of essential fatty acids. We started with flaxseed oil. It's been shown to improve the elasticity of arteries and support healthy blood pressure. Next, we included cold water fish oils, rich in omega-3s that can promote a healthy cardiovascular system and even increase levels of good HDL cholesterol. Then we added borage oil, known for its powerful anti-inflammatory properties. Blended together, these essential fatty acids provide you with the optimal blend of nutrients to help maintain normal cardiovascular health. Ultimate EFA Plus, the right nutrients to improve your heart health naturally. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
Cardio Beats from Youngevity supports a healthy cardiovascular system and helps supply the nutrients your body needs to support better physical endurance. Your capacity to last a little longer is largely based on how well your cardiovascular system expends oxygen and circulates blood through your body. Cardio Beats helps combat the oxidative stress caused by physical activity by supplying you with key nutrients that support your cardiovascular system. These nutrients have also been shown to help improve endurance. Cardio Beats starts with organic beets, a rich source of nitrates to support healthy blood flow and oxygen transport. We've added whole foods from highly bioavailable seaweed and mango fruit, both known for blood flow support, and antioxidant-rich sweet cherries. Then, for even more heart health benefits, we finished it off with key amino acids. Take your physical endurance to the next level with Cardio Beats. Talk to your Youngevity associate for more information.
Welcome back to the program. We're getting into brisk bulls and bears right now. Bulls and bears, which is obviously the public markets. We've got a special guest on the program, Steve Wallach, who's been with us for the last two segments and has an awful lot to say. And it's really great to tap into people's experience. I talk about it all the time. And I've got the rare experience to have been there from the very beginning when Steve's company, who's the CEO of Youngevity. Steve's company went from a private company that was doing, a nice piece of business to all of a sudden making a decision to becoming a public company. And I'd want to ask about that experience and those early perceptions and misconceptions and what he's learned along this path, because many of you are asking me what it takes to become public, and many of you are writing emails that say, I want to become public. And I think you need to understand what becoming public means before you can make that decision. So let's bring Steve back on to the program. Steve, this should be an interesting topic for you. We met in 2011 when we came together, and all of a sudden Youngevity, the company you founded, became a public company. Tell me why and what went into the decision in those early days before you had any experience, and why did you want to become public, and what did you think it would do for Youngevity?
Sure. I had always had an interest in business, as I had mentioned earlier. Always had been interested in terms of the stock markets and things like that. But growing up, I grew up in the Northwest from my teens to early 20s and beyond. And pretty much everybody, it seemed like, that I knew either worked for one of the tech companies or their parents did. And it was kind of, it was long before the dot-coms. And people were involved and invested in terms of stock options. And it became part of the culture of the Northwest around, it was Microsoft, it was Tektronix, it was Intel, were all big in the Northwest. And obviously Apple and Dell were growing up at those same times. And so, I was familiar with it from that standpoint. Obviously in the early 2000s, dot-coms and people being involved for ownership and stock and equity became a really common practice and desirable by so many people. And so it was my goal to involve people in the direct selling space around employees and distributors to provide a vehicle for them to also participate in ownership in the company that we're all building together.
That's a really, really admirable position, I think. And I think that that's probably something most people don't think about. So I think you came into public markets knowing what direct selling was all about and say, hey, is there a way that could get blended together and give kind of a more togetherness in terms of ownership? So that's a really, really cool thing. So all of a sudden, you're about to become public or become public. What do you think in terms of changes, private, now public? What do you think the most difficult part of that is?
The biggest thing you're not prepared for as an entrepreneur probably is all of the just systems that are in place around accounting and just the processes of accountability, outside auditors and things like that. And you have to think through all the systems, and it's just a foreign language to most entrepreneurs. And so it's something that most people aren't really expecting. And you see, I brought up Richard Branson earlier, and you watch people like Elon Musk, and you watch other people that are in and out of public arenas because of that exact thing as entrepreneurs. And ultimately, you wind up realizing where the benefits are of being public.
And what do you think that biggest benefit is? Why, if you're going to become public, what's the number one reason why you would?
I think the biggest reason for most people that they should be interested in being public and consider is expanding the business. And so it gives you access to capital to grow a business in ways that maybe you wouldn't otherwise. And so if you're utilizing that to grow your business, to get to a place you couldn't as a private business, then that's something to consider. It's sort of like having a college education. I was told a long time ago, if you can't get the education you're looking for except for in college, then you go to college. And so it's the same with growing a business. If you can grow a business in ways that you want to grow it, that you couldn't without being public, then it's a great reason to be public.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, actually, and that certainly, I think, is the big advantage to being public. But let's, you might have touched on it a little, but I think you've always said, and I've heard you say this in other interviews, that third-party validation that has to take place, right? The SEC you have to cooperate with, or maybe all of the tax rules you have to follow with, the NASDAQ and its rules that you have to follow with as a NASDAQ company. There's all those rules, but you also said that having that accountability, you think maybe is a wonderful oversight committee once I guess you own it. So talk about that a little bit, because I've heard you speak about that before.
Absolutely. I think being public is probably the best accountability partner you could have. And so, again, it's like learning a foreign language. You have to become very, very familiar with accounting and the accounting principles and things that are associated with being public at this level. But, that's something that most entrepreneurs don't know and have to learn along the way. But the accountability aspect is amazing, but it's also a lot of work.
A ton of work. A few weeks back or so, an announcement was made that the company Youngevity, YGYI, was considering the potential divestiture of one of its divisions from the public markets to the private sector. Tell me what it went into making a decision, even thinking about evaluating something like that, like a divestiture, and why.
Sure, and in growing the business the way we've grown, and you have been a big part of the development of how this has evolved and grown. Each of these three sub-segments or segments of Youngevity International are separate, and they're separate business units. And the reason that we've always done that, I think, is that there's always been that possibility of finding value by divesting different things. And so you're growing an entity and a business, and then you have the options. Having options is always great. And so in considering the divestiture, you're always looking to find ways to create value for shareholders as a publicly traded company. And so that's what we're doing with that possible divestiture, is evaluating the possibility of creating unrealized value for shareholders.
That's something that I think a lot of people miss. At the end of the day, we, as a public company, that board of directors, public executives are accountable for. And at the end of the day, we work for the shareholders. And everyone says CEO or the board doesn't have a boss, and that is so untrue. There's an awful lot of bosses out there to be accountable when you're part of a public entity, isn't there?
Absolutely.
So in this divestiture analysis, it's really becomes down to like the last segment, right? A buy or bail. People don't necessarily understand that. So there's an awful lot of consideration into making a decision, and then what goes into a decision like that, and what is the process like, Steve?
Well, it's a thorough process of evaluation, one internal, but also with outside evaluations of third parties, evaluating fairness and things in all directions. There's attorneys and accountants that also are involved to be sure that the process is done properly. And then ultimately it comes down to the owners of the company, of the business. All shareholders get to have a say.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the things that make public companies so cool, and it's the reason why stock markets exist, in my mind. At the end of the day, public companies with all the oversight, just listening to this segment and all the third-party validation, there's a reason why stock markets like the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange exist, and where really most investment in the world take place, really percentages of portfolios are investments in public companies.
Absolutely. Publicly traded companies give the public the opportunity to own a piece of the rock as well, just like I was talking about earlier in terms of employees and distributors having the opportunity to participate in ownership of our company as we build it also.
I want to get back to that divestiture piece and just make it clear to our listening audience. That is not a definitive agreement. It's just in an evaluation stage. But one of the things that's really, really interesting that you brought up is obviously at the end of the day, will it deliver better value to shareholders? And that's one of the key components that goes into any decision of selling off any asset at the end of the day. Will the company give better value to shareholders? So it's going to be interesting to see how that divestiture conversations unfold and where it might lead. And, I guess we'll stay tuned on that. Do you have any ideas as how far the process is?
Well, it's something that we're working on every single day. And so, as these third parties are completing their evaluations and feedback and back and forth between various third parties, it's something that is not a short process, but it's in process. Absolutely,
and that's the perfect answer for a public segment because, as you know, you can't give any information out that isn't already public, and so we get criticized that many times. I want to know more, but at the end of the day, the cool thing about a public company, nobody gets advantaged. Everybody, in terms of the shareholder in the public markets, gets to find out what happens at the same time. So stay tuned to that. So we're going to wrap up this segment, and what we're going to do is we're going to jump into my favorite segment, which is all about mentorship, when we get into Brisk's best and brightest, and I'll be talking to you, and I'll have Steve Wallach with me on the phone or on the Skype, and he'll help you with some cool mentoring tips as well. We'll be back in a moment.
Super Greens is a one-of-a-kind blend that's loaded with hard-to-find nutrient-dense superfoods. We've used what we've learned from our more than 20 years working with mineral-based nutrition to create one of the healthiest, plant-based nutritional products available. Each superfood was carefully selected so that it complements and enhances the others, helping to maximize Super Greens' nutritional power. Next, we added a specialized fermentation technique to increase the bioavailability of each superfood. Finally, we put in powerful probiotics and enzymes for added digestive support to give you jam-packed nutritional support. Youngevity Super Greens, the highly alkalinizing super supplement that helps balance your body. It's the superfood-powered way to get more organic fruits and veggies in your day, all in just one scoop. Check with your Youngevity distributor to learn more.
Understanding your microbiome can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Ultimate Microbiome by Youngevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
More and more healthcare professionals and people seeking alternative and natural health treatments are turning to hemp-based products because of the growing body of research supporting its benefits. Youngevity has leveraged our years of natural plant-based nutritional research to introduce 3 new products. Hemp FX Soothe helps support muscles and joints by enhancing a healthy immune response and reducing free radical stress. For optimal results, it contains our hemp-derived CBD plus the powerful antioxidant glutathione. Hemp FX Relax helps ease the mind and the body for a deep and restful sleep. We combined our hemp-derived CBD with melatonin to help support your best night's sleep. To help support positive energy for your mind and your mood, we created Hemp FX Uplift. In combination with St. John's wort and a specialized set of terpenes and cannabinoid enhancers. To learn more about Hemp FX, contact your Youngevity distributor or visit hempfx.com.
Welcome back to Briskie Business. We're going to get started with Brisk's Best and Brightest. You all know it's my favorite segment of the program, one that I'm super passionate about. And, we're going to talk about mentorship. I'm really interested in helping you, those young entrepreneurs, get started in business and, maybe make a few less mistakes than I might have made in my early career. So I'm going to bring back, we've been having a really great chat with Steve Wallach, the CEO of Youngevity International, trades on the NASDAQ, YGYI. And Steve has always spoke about mentorship. I know it's been really, really important in his career. And he was excited, actually, to talk about this segment. So I want to get right into it. One of the things I want to ask him, and it might be an interesting question in these times, and to avoid it would just be wrong. We know that Youngevity has that direct selling channel with all these young entrepreneurs and millennials that are part of that channel. And in this new COVID-19 normal, what do you think it's going to take, Steve, for them to be successful? And does it differ in your mind with this pandemic, or does it not differ?
I think for a lot of people it will be different. A lot of new will come out of this. Anytime there's a circumstance and this widespread and dramatic, new things come out of it, new technology, new ways of doing business, new ways of even meeting together and things like that. And so mentorship, I think, is a classic principle. I don't think that's going away. I think the way people are mentored going forward may change dramatically, though.
Do you think it's a very touchy business, right? A very relationship business. What type of pivots do you see maybe that might have to happen with all this social distancing to be successful within the business?
I think at the end of the day, it still comes down to relationships and building relationships, establishing relationships. And, I think we're all learning that technology is more useful than maybe we thought, or, it was this kind of thing that we wanted to maybe avoid, some of us. And it allows us to embrace technology that much more to still further relationships and things, or establish relationships.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously, where are you sitting right now?
I'm sitting in our offices here in Chula Vista.
Okay, and I'm sitting in Miami. So, and technology can bring us together, and then you can also broadcast that out there. So I think we're seeing that technology take place, and those that embrace it quicker, I think you're already seeing an acceleration of maybe home-based opportunities. So I wanted to talk to you about this statement, and I've heard you make it before. It says it's been said that the direct selling model is counter-cyclical to a good economy. Well, this is not a good economy right now. And I'm curious, do you think that statement applies within this current crisis?
I do, as much as ever before. And so, I think there's a lot of convergence of things happening right now. And I read something the other day that in terms of technology, 2020 has become the new 2030, because a lot of things that people and analysts and businesses didn't expect the general public to embrace for another 10 years, they're embracing now, because necessity is the mother of invention.
Isn't that interesting? You know, they've called this industry's been around, I'm talking about the direct channel, has been around over 100 years. But in this, it's starting to evolve and it's taking on new terms. I've heard you call it the gig economy. And, you know, I have maybe a more cute name for it, and I like to call it a side hustle because a lot of folks are part-timer. How do you think and how important do you think a side hustle for people is going to be in this area of pandemic that's going on now?
Well, you know, Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie named their production company Plan B. And so I think a side hustle, I think the gig economy, I think all of those things are converging now. I had read long before the pandemic broke out that 1 in 2 people by 2020 would be participating in the gig economy. People, because of technology, are really learning and realizing that they can be an entrepreneur, poolside, beachside, anywhere from around the world that they can access their laptop, their computer, the internet. And so I think this just drives it all that much more home, I guess, so to speak. And in terms of a side hustle, I think it's the best insurance in the world in terms of income.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a ton of sense to me. Hey, Steve, I'm curious because I'd like to get into this with you a little bit. I know how hard you work. I know you're always the first guy in the office, absolutely, for certain, always have been. It's one of those cores people have. There's no way you're going to knock that out of you. You're going to be there very, very early. And last week, I did an episode on gap moments. Did you happen to catch it?
I did. I enjoyed it very much.
Okay, so what I'm curious about, guy that works really, really hard as an entrepreneur, has been doing this really your whole working life, is what do you personally do to balance work and life?
That's a good question. It's a very good question. In fact, I was reflecting when I watched your segment on showing up to work. In fact, it was your segment on gap moments. And you have to incorporate your family and your life into your business as much as possible. And that's one of the things I love about the direct selling profession is it's fairly easy to do that. It's very easy to involve people in your business that you care about and that you want to work with. And so I think that's super important.
Okay, that's so you involve them in. Do you have any passions that take you away, you know, kind of help you kind of like take it down a notch? Because when a hard driving entrepreneur, and I understand, particularly trying to operate business in this kind of quote new normal, man, sometimes it's easy to forget about yourself. Are you getting lost in the business, or are you able to find maybe that gap time that you can kind of resurface your head into the right place?
You know, I think it's important for people to recharge their batteries. And so I encourage people to take their time off and not in just dribs and drabs. I think, people like you and myself are different than maybe a lot of other people in terms of, cat naps and gap moments are adequate for most of the time. But I know, you love to fish. I love to fish. I grew up in the Northwest. My father taught me to fish and taught me how to fish. And so, I love that sort of stuff. I don't get to do it enough these days, I don't think. But things that allow you to decompress are just taking those moments and taking that deep breath in, having a cup of coffee, and just trying to clear your head. Absolutely.
Well, I hope you're finding times and you're finding gap moments for yourself. It's been a very difficult time. I know that those new graduates, those new graduates that have come out in 2020, right? They've come out into this new normal, and apparently you've been watching some Briskie Business. Any tips for them as they venture out into this new world where, 30 million people now are unemployed? What do they need to do in 30 seconds to make something happen for them?
I think find what you're passionate about. And, one of my mentors used to tell me all the time that find what you love and the money will follow. And so find what you love, find what you're passionate about, and do that.
I think that is great advice, and I agree with that as well. Steve, I want to thank you so much for being on the program. Thanks for coming along and doing all 4 segments. I feel really proud to have you be a part of it, and thank you for coming online with me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Dave.
So we're going to wrap up Briskie Business right now. This is the 4th episode. It was great to have our first guest, and we have a big guest list of different people coming. I've really enjoyed the conversation with all of you today, and I'll look forward to coming back to you next week as we launch episode 5 on Briskie Business.